To the left, you have the TCL QM7. To the right, you have the Samsung S95D. Yeah, that's right. You heard it right. The S95D, the most flagship, nearly $3,000 Samsung QD OLED television. Yeah, that's what you have. And you can clearly see the TCL QM7 is holding its own pretty damn well out of the box. Now, keyword, out of the box. Now, this is a testament to you have to really put your work into both televisions to see what they can do. Now, at a first glance, some of the things that are going to be immediately more noticeable. The TCL is just going to be brighter than the Samsung. The Samsung is just going to be more contrast rich than the TCL. So they both bring their strengths and weaknesses. I do like the TCL's brightness because it allows for a wider array of color volume in this example and with this particular setup. However, once you dial it in, this will skew very, very far apart. Now, this is also why if you watch other comparisons on YouTube, it'll look a lot like this. And you'll be like, oh, wow, that TCL is pretty incredible. And maybe that Samsung's not that great, okay? Now, I'm going to show you what it would look like if we put settings into the TCL. Okay, so we're going to go to my settings that I have here. And I just made sure to set it up on the vivid mode. And you can clearly see a dramatic improvement as far as all of your color throw. And now look at the Samsung. If we were to do the comparison like this, the Samsung would get absolutely destroyed. Let that sink in because there is a possible outcome to where you can set up the TCL in such a manner where the Samsung S95D can get destroyed. Not beaten, not kind of baked, not kind of spanked, destroyed. That is a very big statement because as you are clearly seeing here, yeah, if you leave it like this, it's getting destroyed. So the moral of the story is I am the difference maker, okay? I don't call myself the world's best calibrator and have people say I'm the world's best calibrator for no reason. It's because I make the difference with these displays. You have to keep that in mind. You are watching totally optimized displays. Now, unlike other calibrators, I'm not charging you $500. It's only $4.99 to grab the settings that you are seeing in this comparison, and that is the literal only way you are going to see what I'm talking about throughout the rest of this video. Now, I want to go ahead and show you what it looks like when we go into the Samsung as well, and we add their settings as well, because again, the settings make the difference. So now we're looking at them look very, very identical, which I'm not gonna lie, I kind of feel a type of way about because of the price point of the S95D. Now, upon being very specific or, you know, pixel peeping esque or whatever we say, okay, you can see that the Samsung has better highlights. That's the immediate takeaway. The colors are more vibrant. Don't mistake vibrancy for saturation. They are two very different things. And we are clearly seeing that TCL now falls way behind in certain shades, like in this example. They just cannot keep up with what Samsung is providing on any real level, shape, and or form. Now, again, that doesn't mean that the TCL is bad. It just means that there's a reason why you're paying the $2,500+ for the Samsung S95D. However, can we appreciate the TCL is $499 and look at how close it gets to a $2,500+ television, damn near $2,600. I mean, you get the idea. Well, really at $2,599, once you factor in taxes, you're probably looking at $2,700, $2,800, but that's besides the point. You know what I'm saying. They're just way too close, way too close to call this a budget TV. This is absolutely premium level. And for anyone out there just trying to write TCL off as a best bang for buck kind of deal, they're full of shit. And that's the only way you could say that because you're looking at it go up against the most flagship Samsung QD OLED on the market, period. And if you haven't been following this channel or you're new to this channel, it has been taking names and kicking all kinds of ass, the likes of which are the Bravia 9, the LG G3, the LG C4, and other TVs that people have glown about and said is so amazing. And here we are looking at literally a TCL hold its own against a TV like that. Now again, to add a special notation, that's only because of the settings that I have created for this display. I am fully aware of that. I understand that. Not everybody that watches this will join and see the settings, to which I say I can't help you. It's $4.99, round up, call it $5, okay? That'll give you every bit of what I'm showing you here. But for people who just never run into me, I again, I can't speak to why their reviews would look very different. Other people that never join because of whatever reason, they won't see what I'm talking about. But I think the images are speaking for themselves. You can see highlight throw on the TCL. That's just magnificent, truly. But again, obviously Samsung has that extra contrast. We would hope so, right? Quantum.OLED. OLED is self-emissive. So we already knew it was going to have the contrast advantage. I don't think anybody was expecting a TCL to best Samsung in the contrast department. Even though it might have the matte finish screen, which is notorious for killing some of your contrast, obviously, it is comparatively to what Samsung has already done, like the S90D. That's where you'd see some issues with contrast. However, looking at this right here, you can clearly see what's up. The TCL is an amazing TV, and watching this scene, it's very impressive because no, it's not a match for match. I would never lie and tell you it's a match for match. However, brightness wise, it's pretty on par. I mean, they're basically identical. TCL has the edge as far as brightness globally, as far as the full screen brightness, but from a highlight perspective, it does tend to struggle a little bit with the accuracy of that. The contrast, though, on the Samsung is really where you're going to see a lot more of the three-dimensionality, the pop, things of that nature. So these are the differences that you are going to be able to pick up between these two displays. Now, again, we're going to go into a couple other examples. I know I spent the first 6 or so minutes explaining this, but you really do have to see this difference to believe it. So let's start showing you some different content. So let's start with some YouTube content. The first thing you're going to notice is that they are very different as far as the kind of hues that they pump out. The TCL targets almost like this really cold blue, as you can tell, and the Samsung to the right targets a really warm blue, which makes it darker and richer. You'll also notice a vast difference in the way that they render contrast and things of that nature. And there's really no real way to get around that. Now, I don't really know if you can say that one direction is totally right and one's totally wrong, but there is no doubt that Samsung is a little bit overzealous in terms of the way they render blue in the native color space. Now, granted, this is not a custom color calibration that I did on Samsung. This is just if you were to rock it at native, which will typically give you the most vibrant the TV can look. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way, pause right here, is to show you that even when we're using the most vibrant that Samsung has to kick out, TCL, while yes, they are far behind in the purity of the vibrancy, rather. So the red's not going to look as explosively red as we have right here. The greens, so on and so forth. It's still doing a damn good job of giving an aesthetically pleasing look that I think almost anybody would be happy with. And in a lot of instances say, wow, wait a minute, what's going on here? Is this $499 TV really performing this way? Because again, if you were to look at what Samsung looks like out of the box, just to again illustrate the difference that I'm making here for these TVs. And again, settings are everything. And here's it in standard mode. I mean, now take a look. Which TV would you prefer? I mean, because this is about what you're going to get out of the gate. Now, if you are one of those purists and one of those sticklers like, oh, I want reference accuracy, don't worry. Pantone validated, fully calibrated. The Samsung S95D is ready to go, and here you go. Movie mode, or filmmaker mode rather, this is the look that you get. This is a fully calibrated television. See, that's their reference standard. This is my custom in-house calibration standard that I've created. I mean, there's a day and night difference, and we can just let it play out like this and show you if we were to do a reference accurate calibration, how badly it would get baked. It wouldn't even be close. This TV, just for all intents and purposes, for everybody wondering, this is a $2,000+ television, the Samsung S95D. But when you put it into the director's intent mode, which is filmmaker mode, you see how much of the image you're robbed of, how much you're giving up, and it's just ridiculous to a point where why even upgrade from an old TV if you're going to make it look like this? Because here's the truth. Like I've said, this is a 30-year-old reference standard. And, well, you want to know what that means with real content, not just cartoons or colorful images like some people complain. Well, this is what it looks like. It looks more like you have a lot of pale skin tones, characters, everything. They just look like they got out of the morgue. A death filter generally is wrapped around the entire picture with over-dimming, and again, just a very dull look. That is the only thing that you can say about filmmaker mode and all these purist modes. Now, go ahead and put back in my settings, and then we get more of the same of what we would expect. Again, beautiful color. Everything just kind of pops in a way that makes sense. Skin tones come back to life, and now you're seeing what you pay the extra $2,000 over the TCL for in some instances. Like, again, the red, they are just popping. And for me, I don't want you guys to misunderstand this, okay? A lot of people mistake this for saturation. This intensity of red over this is not saturation. This is called vibrancy. It is more vibrant. It has that glow, that pop that is just not possible when you just merely oversaturate. See, all day, every day, I can go into the TCL and oversaturate an image. And I'm going to show you the difference on camera because I don't think very many people talk about this. They just say Samsung's just wildly oversaturated. No, no, no. Let's go and show you, okay? So we're going to go color saturation 100, okay? Adding more saturation is not going to fix your lapse of vibrancy because, again, I'm at 100 on the saturation, and look, the image doesn't look anywhere near as vibrant, even still, as the Samsung S95D. Both have quantum dots in them, but it's the way that, again, Samsung is making them appear to be higher end quantum dots with the way they're rendering the image is making the difference here. So again, not to mistake color saturation for color vibrancy because they are two very different things. Now, that out of the way, the TCL really is at its best. I mean, there's not a whole lot more we could do for TCL. An argument can be made for maybe using my low power settings, but that would dim the image a little much. And I think this is a happy medium. Now, for full disclosure, this is where we started from on TCL, okay? That ain't great. And if you were comparing it like that, it would look like trash. And again, we can go and do the same thing on the Samsung, showing you these differences in real time so you can see what you're paying for and the differences. And again, Filmmaker mode, these are both default modes, default to default, and you can kind of see neither one looks fantastic. But now an odd thing kind of starts to happen where, yeah, you still have the richness and the contrast of the S95D, no doubt all day, every day, but they look a lot closer because they're both targeting the same jaundiced, ugly garbage, which is the, again, Rec 709 look of SDR content. Most of your content's SDR, which is why we're reviewing it in SDR, and you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. It just doesn't look good, and there's no argument or justification you can make for it looking better when it just doesn't have the aptitude to look better. Not ever. That's just a Rec 709 calibration. So we do my in-house calibration, and we go ahead and resume with the rest of this here demo to show you what the colors look like even further, and then the picture becomes very clear. You have a world of difference in the vibrancy on the S95D, and that is one of the biggest takeaways you could probably get from this entire comparison. However, when you look at what's happening, they are very similar in terms of what they render, again, when you get to bright scenes for contrast. Now, again, the image looks a little warped on camera because I'm having to angle this differently just so I can get it in frame. Because again, I do have space limits. I'm not like Rockefeller, right? I'll try to zoom out a little bit and try to move it a little bit differently. I don't know. But I do have to angle this a bit off axis. So it does look a little weird. But you get the idea. You're able to see what the picture quality looks like, which is, again, what we're after. Now, on camera, it looks way more green than I actually see with my naked eye. Unfortunately, it is intensifying the color green on the TCL. That's not actually as green as it looks when I look with my naked eye, but there is more green on this than on that. So it's kind of doing what LG does, like it's just overemphasizing tints, which is really irritating. But again, that's why you have to follow commentary, because that's going to be your ultimate guide when you watch these kinds of comparisons. But you get the idea. You can clearly see that there's a lot happening here for color, but what's not happening is the same level of purity and richness and contrast. But honestly, for $499, you tell me if you were getting close enough with my settings specifically to what you have on a TV that's $2,000 more expensive. I would venture to say, yeah, you're getting pretty damn close, and you're not coming anywhere near the price point of the more expensive television, but you're getting a lot of the contrast feeling, a lot of the brightness feeling, a lot of the shock and awe feeling, to the point where they do, in a lot of instances, start feeling very, very similar. Green is probably the best color to illustrate what I'm talking about in terms of vibrancy and the differences between the two. Don't care how you slice it, you're not getting the same level of green vibrancy, pause right here, out of the TCL that you're getting out of the Samsung to the right. The Samsung S95D obviously is going to have the better picture, but this is where you're seeing the separation from that entry-level quantum dot television to a more premium flagship one. Again, it comes down to shades of color, how many pencils in the pencil box, so to speak, that you have to create color with, and the amount of brightness to throw behind that color, giving you extra color volume, yada yada. All of it plays a role, and green is one of those tattletale colors, right? It'll tell you when you have something overly blue, because the greens that are supposed to appear green will start to look a lot cooler and have more of a bluish hue to them. It's the ultimate tattletale color. I mean, look at your produce right here. I mean, this is an ultimate example. Which one looks closer to the shade of blue than it does to a more realistic shade of diverse vegetables, fruits and vegetables here out on the table or wherever they have it. You get the idea. It just starts to look more artificial. And that's the thing that I would say with the TCL. It has a very artificial look, a lot like what you'd find on some of the Sony TVs, because it rocks a cooler color temperature. And again, blue is another one of those tattletale colors, because you're going to see it here. Again, you see all of the gradients here, all of the various shades of color. Here, it's falling very, very short. Now, again, my biggest issue is they'll come out and they'll say, oh, it covers 99% of the DCI-P3 color coverage. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you're not intelligently mapping the colors where they belong, even in SDR. And here in SDR, it's happening. It's not that one TV should be more capable than the other. Again, we're talking quantum dot to quantum dot. The only difference at this point should be the OLED level blacks. But that's not the case. As you are clearly seeing, there are some massive differences, and they boil down to color rendering. And I will even tell you, there is a weird little glitch that happens on the TCL where every time I turn it on, the white balance resets. And I have to toggle it on and off again just so I can get my white balance to lock into the calibration that I had last. Very, very weird. Don't know why that's the thing, but it's also one of those differences when you go from budget to flagship. Now let's get another demo up and show you guys some more content. This is like the oldest demo that I've used. I've been using this since like what, 2016, 2015, and it is so reliable at showing you differences in black levels, hues, and so many different things. And I can safely tell you that this demo was made to stress test a television. This is where we're seeing a lot more of the black level deficiencies, where the light bulbs are stressing the TCL just a lot more than what we see obviously on an OLED. And again, at this price point, that is something you are going to have to expect. Don't expect OLED blacks in every instance. Again, when you have something like a small bright light bulb on a black background or fire in the scene, you are going to see some blooming and some white areas creep into that black, because it's not going to give you the step up flagship level of blacks that you have on the TCL QM851G. That's just not going to happen. That's the reality. I mean, again, even here, pause right here, it's fairly gray, and you have some pretty bad black levels, which you can't see right now. Now, ultimately speaking, you probably can pick up a little bit of it in the corner here, but it's way more pronounced. Now, most YouTubers like to hide in dark rooms and go, oh, see guys, everything is perfect, and just buy it because I make commission off of my affiliate links that so happen to be in my description. I'm not like that. I really don't care about that kind of thing. Yeah, I could be far, far more lucrative if I do that, but then I'm selling you out, and that's just not the way I work. So what we're going to do is show you, if you raise your camera sensitivity to light, letting in more light to your image sensor on your camera, aka your ISO, raising that will show you all of the ugly that a lot of YouTubers just kind of hide, and you're seeing it right here. I'll stop right about here, because this is about what I see right here, okay? It ain't pretty. Right? Now, again, the whole image isn't clipped out, but imagine if you can. The colors are perfectly colored in. The only thing that you aren't getting is the really inky deep black. So you can clearly see it right here. It's all lighting up like the 4th of July, all through here, all through here. This is where you're going to see a lot more blooming. And it, again, is when you start stress testing and driving extra brightness, which is why I always tell people, don't always try to go as bright as you can go on these TVs, because they do have adverse effects. Now, if we go into my dimmer profile that I created with low power, you kind of can see a lot of that does kind of go away a bit more. And again, this is at a higher ISO at 1600. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about. When you look at something that's at a dimmer brightness setup, it's not going to be as jarring of an effect and as hard to palette. So again, don't take it as hard as some people take it when they see blooming, because again, it will vary depending on scene and what your setup is. But again, if you were driving the most impressive brightness, yeah, you better expect to see that, because that's just a thing. So now we're going to go ahead and hit play on this demo, and we're going to lower our ISO down first, back down to where we had it. Again, by doing that, you'll see none of the black level deficiencies. But again, now we're assessing the color once more, and you can see that again, it is pretty uniform to what we have on the Samsung S95D as far as the bright contrast. So when you get to the bright areas, they are almost identical, especially in this scene, which is a win. So that's kind of what you have to take into account. If most of the scenes that you are looking at in your content are going to be bright, they're going to be very similar. And that's a good thing for you at the $499 price point on sale. Again, you can't expect to have every win, and I think that's where people tend to get a little greedy and expect all of the wins of the flagship models when they look at certain products. But then there are people that are totally realistic and know that they are only spending about $500 on this, and they're not going to go crazy with the expectations. And that's kind of why I'm reviewing it this way, showing you that my expectations for this was that of a $500 TV, and here we are in front of something that's $2,000 more expensive, or next to something $2,000 more expensive, and it's still looking pretty damn good next to it. That is a win for ultimately every single budget consumer that doesn't have the money to spend on something a little bit more expensive, because again, you know, times are tough, inflation, all that good shit. You don't have to spend that kind of money if you don't have it or don't want to. And now, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. I'll show you some more of the things I don't like, but as far as things I do like, the contrast on this one is just going to have to take the win. It looks really good and solid in normal content. Now, something I'm not particularly fond of is how gray the black levels can look on occasion, like in this example where the city, yeah, it's not doing the best. Where, again, this is darker, this is lacking the contrast. So again, that's where the extra brightness does come to be a handicap. But keep in mind, we are also comparing this against a $25.99 OLED, and it is a $499 television. Again, I don't think anybody is going to be like, oh, I spent $500 and I'm not getting what a $2,600+ TV essentially is doing. Like, oh no, like I don't think anybody would be that unrealistic. And I understand that for a lot of people, they might find this comparison very, very unfair, because most people in the $499 price point are probably not even looking at this stratosphere. But this is an endurance test to show you the difference as to what you are and are not getting. And what you are not getting are those perfect gradations, separating all of that the right way. Here it's just a little way too cool again. Now again, comparatively to where it started, it may look like we've worked a miracle on this TV, because if you look and we go back to the starting point, the origins of this TV, let's just go to movie mode and you get the idea, versus where it ended up. Even here, I mean, like, we have so many different modes, and again, I have a vivid mode set up that makes it look a little bit better. Low power gives it a little bit extra contrast, so we can really pick whatever we want. It helps it a little bit, but again, comparatively to where we started, it does ultimately look like we've worked a miracle, because again, you can see, like, starting here, this is how faded it was. And yeah, if you watch most YouTubers' videos, their footage is going to look like this, where the TCL is going to be all washed and ugly like that and not have the same color as this, or nowhere in the same ballpark. Some people will even laugh you out of the room if you say, oh, they come close. I can't stress that. But when you see it with your own eyes, you can clearly see that, yeah, they really do have a way of coming close in a lot of examples, like in this one. It's just the luminosity on the TCL is really high. But that high luminosity doesn't tell the whole story, and I think a lot of people would be very, I wouldn't say disappointed, but just like, I guess like let down, if you will. I guess that's the same thing, because of, again, over expecting and under delivering in certain areas. Like if you expect TCL to have the contrast mapping of a Samsung QD OLED, it's just not going to happen. So you can go to a brighter mode, and yeah, sure, TCL all day, every day can get brighter in a lot of instances than the Samsung S95D, but not all. And the thing is, it's like Samsung is intelligently placing highlights where they belong and TCL is not. Though I don't care who you are, if you look at this example, you're going to say, damn, they are pretty damn close in this example. And they are. They look very identical is the word I would use, until you get again to the color blue in the sky. That's the one thing that is driving me crazy. And if I ever figure out how to fix it, that'd be great. But you really have to sacrifice the color in the sky and shadow detail in this example on the cow, because here you have all that natural shadow detail and everything. The only way you can get this kind of depth and immersion is by crushing out those black levels, which I don't like to do. And that's the sacrifice you have to make with the TCL. You have to introduce black crush and other things that some people might not be comfortable with. But then again, it does tend to work, because in examples like this, there looks like there's nothing wrong with the image. And in fact, it pulls ahead of what we have on the Samsung. And again, certain areas like the color vibrancy specifically just looks better on the TCL here, but accuracy is off. So when somebody says accuracy is off, what are they talking about? Well, if you look in between the blades of grass here, you can notice there's like kind of almost yellow or lime looking shades, and there are more, typical grass shades that you would see. And they're more varied across, where over here, they're not as isolated and as clear to see, and they're not as warm as they should be. Again, being from Florida, seeing many alligators, that's something that you would pick up on. The lack of warmth, showing a lack of the color brown where it belongs here, and the pattern on the back of the alligator versus here where it's just too overly bright. And that's the moral of the story. The TCL's brightness is a double-edged sword. It helps in some scenes, hurts in others. Some people will like it, some people won't be able to stand it. It really does come down to your palatry. Like in this example, though, these TVs do look identical. And in a lot of examples, like again, this one, they look identical with an edge towards TCL for the color brown, ironically, which they couldn't get right in the last scene. So again, don't hear that brown is wrong all the time, because as you can clearly see, it shifts and it changes way too much. And I mean way too much. But another thing that really should be, I wouldn't say alarming to people, but kind of like maybe check yourself moment for people saying that like LEDs are past it. Look at the image on the screen right now and how close it is at the $499 level to a $2599 QD OLED. I mean, it's impressive stuff. And I'm going on and on and on because I really want to show you what no one else has shown you. Yeah, sure, you've seen comparisons, but nobody did it like this. Nobody is showing you that this is so much more than a budget TV, that this goes beyond the realm of budget. Yes, you have inconsistencies and problems, like in this example. It's just way too bright again because what the algorithm tries to do, oh, that's a highlight, let me brighten it up. It's a trick that it's trying to do to give it that extra boost. And yes, I turned off micro contrast, which would exaggerate that effect even further. Where over here, this is just perfect. Every shade of ambient light reflecting off of the feathers. These are the little nuanced things that an image purist of sorts like myself would appreciate. Where if you're not an image purist and you're just trying to get a really nice looking TV, you're not going to notice those things or even care. Especially once it moves, you're going to be like, oh, the hawk looks pretty good. And again, the highlights on the TCL are probably what's going to impress people more than any other aspect of it. But again, if you pay attention to the details, again, fine details versus sheer brightness, that's really what you're battling here. And again, it might not be everybody's cup of tea. For me, though, I think this is a pretty damn good starting point for TCL as far as their introduction into offering high-end picture quality on a budget. Because again, we haven't seen any manufacturer on earth do this, where they've given this level of picture quality at this price point. Again, the starting price when it first launches, we all know sales hit. And now that the sales have hit, we're again looking at a $499 TV before taxes. And that's damn impressive all day, every day. But that being said, I don't want this comparison to drag on entirely way too long, so instead of showing you the S95D in the next example, I'll show you the S90D versus this, so make sure you stay through for that comparison. I'd love to hear what you guys thought about this. Are you impressed by the TCL? And if not, let me know why down below. Thanks again for watching the #1 brand in honesty, and until the next video, I'll see you guys later.